And we're live. And I want to make sure everything is up and running because this is a very, very important show. It looks like we are good. You can hear me. We've gotten the word out. Letitia James is getting really nervous right about now because things are kind of piling up for this woman. I would just argue that she may have been asleep at the switch for a little bit too long. And as a result of that, some things happened that never should have happened, including perhaps $9.6 billion getting laundered through the state of New York, through a bank that was headquartered in New York, at least had New York headquarters, British bank actually, and Letitia just kind of looked the other way. I mean, that's kind of unbelievable, right? But this is what happens, you see. Ladies and gentlemen, when you have someone like a Letitia James not doing her job, these money laundering allegations, they're pretty serious. I mean, you couple that together with the mortgage fraud allegations and, well, you get a recipe for a bit of a disaster, do you not? And by the way, where the heck is that lawsuit, the $500 million judgment that she secured against one President Trump? Why hasn't that been tossed out of court yet, especially given all that we know about what the judges have said, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, that thing wasn't going to see the light of day, and yet somehow it's still held up in court. These things typically take 30 days, but it's been over 300. So what do you think that's about? I guarantee you. Politics, 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 politics. Kathy Hochul at work. The White House has said that she admitted as much. It would not surprise me. Good to have you on the show, everyone. I am Trish Regan. This is the Trish Regan Show. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. I just got to say, come on, Letitia, what the heck is going on? We're talking about a huge financial scam that she may allegedly be in the center of because she didn't care. She didn't care. So the story first coming to light, thanks to our friends over at Gateway Pundit, who first did some of the reporting on this, showing that she was being implicated in this, the Standard Chartered Bank sanctions evasion case. It's now in the court in the U.S. Second Circuit. And what did they find? But $9.6 billion. $9.6 billion. Wow. That may have been going from China through New York and into Iran. I mean, this is crazy, right? Because what is she supposed to do? She's supposed to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen. Like, that's actually something that falls under her jurisdiction. And don't forget, the way the oil market is constructed is that it's effectively like the petrodollar market, and you have to actually pay for things in dollars. Like, even when you're trying to obscure stuff and you're changing flags on some of the ships that we've seen that one happen. That's a whole other scandal that we're going to talk about. That's going on all around the world. But when you're trying to evade sanctions, you still, when you're buying oil, need to pay for the oil in dollars. And so Iran, they need those dollars. China was sending money, allegedly, according to this case, to Iran through New York. And there's like $9.6 billion that was getting sent. And you're like, how can this happen? I mean, these were Biden's sanctions after all. It was President Biden who put this in place. And somehow Letitia James just allows it to occur. Now, I'm not saying that she was skimming anything off the top. One would certainly hope not. One would certainly hope that no one on her team was doing anything funny, right? But if nothing else, the woman was likely highly distracted because, she's got one thing on her mind and one thing only, and that is go get Trump. Period. End of story. You know the drill. I mean, she's like hyperventilating every time she talks.
And you want me to sit in my seat and stand idly by and allow this craziness to happen? You could come after me if you want, but you elected me to stand up. You elected me to use the law. You elected me to go to court. You elected me to continue to challenge this administration. You elected me to stand up for the least of God's children. You elected me to continue fighting on.
Here's the thing. We actually elected you to make sure that kind of basic stuff like, money laundering between China and Iran doesn't actually happen. Again, it comes under her jurisdiction. You might say, why is this New York's? Well, because, basically in order to have that amount of money get transferred into petrodollars, into dollars, if you would, it's got to come through New York. So at some point it stops in New York, which is why New York actually has the financial presence it has and why Letitia James, in many ways, believe it or not, has the power she has. But she actually was too busy going after Trump that she never was doing her job. And hence now we're looking at Standard Chartered Bank sanctions, evasion collusion case now in the U.S. Second Court, finding $9.6 billion of illegal payments made to Iran and other illicit players. And so Iran and China are basically circumventing the sanctions via a bank that had a reputation for this. And Letitia James doesn't even bat an eye. Come on. Well, Carrie Lake, you know Carrie Lake, she's not too happy about this. She noticed this one too. Nobody's talking about it. I'm like, this is kind of a big deal, guys. Kind of a big deal. Carrie Lake out with a statement. Don't forget, she's U.S. Agency for Global Media, saying this is a serious issue. President Trump trying to undo the damage caused by Biden and Obama with their destructive policies towards Israel and America, as well as the people of Iran, has put forth a maximum pressure, zero tolerance, blocking any funding to Iran and its terror network. And now a British bank who operates in the U.S. is accused of processing billions of illicit payments to Iran, and the New York Attorney General's office, led by Tish James, knew about it and did nothing. Now, how do we know that she knew about it? According to Gateway Pundit, there were 2 meetings, you guys, 2 meetings. She didn't do anything to stop them, Carrie says. The question is, was it simply ineptitude on the part of Letitia James and the Federal Reserve? Because, by the way, the Federal Reserve kind of screwed up on this one, too. Wow. Okay, so, you've got SWIFT dropping the ball. You got the Fed dropping the ball. You got Letitia James clearly dropping the ball, as to be expected. And they're working with a bank here. Let's point out that Standard Chartered Bank's history has not exactly been the most stellar, okay? Like, not exactly stellar. This is a company who was charged in 2019 and fined, wow, guys, $1.1 billion. It got a fine of $1 billion. You know, Trump is wrestling with Harvard right now, and they're only talking about $500 million. This bank, Standard Chartered, out of the UK, which operates in the US, got fined $1.1 billion. So it kind of had a history that was a little bit sketchy. For what? Oh, exact same thing. Money laundering, sanctions breaches, transactions involving Iran when it should have been not transacting with Iran. And then in 2012, they had another biggie, $340 million to settle claims of laundering $250 billion for Iranian clients. I mean, wow. If I'm Standard Chartered, I want a new head of compliance. Oops. It seems like the person who was in charge of some of that actually wound up at SWIFT. They're in charge of actually making sure, along with Letitia James and along with the Federal Reserve, of making sure things like this don't happen. And so I think the timing is a little. I'm not blaming the SWIFT lady, because I think she wasn't actually there at Standard Charter when all that went down. But I'm just saying, like, someone's not doing their job. Okay, you guys put sanctions in place. You know, Trump actually prefers tariffs to sanctions, but you put the sanctions in place, and then nobody actually does anything about it. I mean, the court filings are seeking now to retrieve some of these evidence payments that may have gone towards some pretty bad actors, shall we say, with Standard Charter's Iran transaction division. How can this happen? How does it happen? Well, it happens because what? You got Letitia James there in charge, asleep at the switch. Allegedly, they told her twice. There were thousands of emails that they sent to her and her team, and apparently nobody did anything. You have the Financial Times reporting on it. In fact, they've talked to some of these executives that worked at Standard Charter, and they say it was a colossal fraud on the court. You know, that they failed to, in one case, provide any kind of substantive evidence to help authorities' enforcement actions against the bank for violating U.S. and international sanctions. And yet, you know, you're talking about a lot of money. 9.6, like, how does $9.6 billion go through a New York bank, again, a British bank, but with an operation in New York, and make its way to Iran? I mean, it's coming from China and it's going to Iran. It's coming through New York, and Letitia doesn't care? I find that peculiar, okay, just to say the least. I mean, I know she's kind of inept and not very smart and all that, but, you know, apparently, per the Gateway Pundit, forgive me, I'm pulling a Marco Rubio here with my water. She was briefed on this issue, she and her team, back in early 2024 by whistleblowers and sanctioned financing experts. And allegedly, she was told all about this. And what did she do? She renewed the license, if you would, the license for this particular bank, even while she knew they were being accused of this stuff. And I just think it's concerning. I mean, how does this woman have a job? She's completely incompetent. Again, if you go to the Gateway, Jim Hoff wrote this at Gateway Pundit in early 2024. New York AG was briefed, but did nothing other than reapprove Standard Chartered Bank's annual license. So again, I'm not suggesting that there was any money changing hands. We wouldn't want to libel her in any way, right? But I am saying that this is quite suspicious. And if nothing else, speaks to the incompetence of this woman. You know, she has all the time and all the energy in the world to go after Donald Trump for something that, frankly, she never should have gone after him for. And you know, you're going to get my Irish up in more ways than one. It can really surface when I'm in Ireland. Yeah, that was just so utterly bizarre. And yet she was working so hard on that and doing her little press tour on all of that. Now she's going after the administration once again, trying to say that illegals should get SNAP benefits. And how dare the administration ask for any kind of accountability of any illegals that may be getting those benefits. I mean, this is what she's spending her time on, and yet the important stuff, and this is important. I mean, if you're going to sanction someone, okay, you got to actually sanction them. She's not doing that work. So ask yourself why. Ask yourself why. Again, going back to the article, they're actually pointing out that she was briefed on this multiple times. They brought in some whistleblowers. They brought in terror financing experts. They brought in everybody to talk to her in both February and March of 2024 about the $9.6 billion in illegal payments, and yet nothing happened. And instead, they actually renewed the license of the bank so it could continue operating and I guess continue doing all this money laundering. And that's wild. That's absolutely wild. And there's also some concern about some of the members of her team and, you know, some of their affiliations, shall we say. But I would just say it's concerning that you have somebody who's in charge of this who's not willing to do the job. She's either lazy, she's either, dare we say, on the take, and I'd hate to think that, or she's simply incompetent, or, you know, she just doesn't care because there are bigger fish to fry, shall we say. Oh yeah, really big fish to fry because she's got to go after the big guy, right? That's what this is all about. Going after the big guy. And we're going to get to all that is going on in terms of her suing on behalf of the migrants getting SNAP benefits. We're going to get into where that case now stands in court because it's concerning to me. But, you know, before I do that, I actually want to turn to one of our new sponsors here on the show that we're so proud to have, our friends over at Gemini. You know that I am a big crypto fan, and you know that crypto is, of course, very volatile. And this is one of the reasons why I actually like this particular thing I'm going to tell you about. I also like to travel, and I was recently trying to book a trip, and I was looking at using some miles, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, the miles are not going as far as they used to. I mean, I can't remember the last time I tried to book with miles, but certainly they were worth a whole lot more than they are now. And so I was like, this is terrible, right? Like they're like, they're worse than the dollar, shall we say. The miles just keep losing value even more than your US dollars. And so when I heard about this and Gemini approached me about this, I was like, this sounds pretty neat. Because in this particular case, they've come out with a new credit card and you get rewards that are accumulated in cryptos. There's actually 50 cryptos that you can look. I mean, I like Bitcoin, but you know, some people like Ethereum, some people like Sweeney, some people like Tau. Lots of different cryptos that you can be looking at. I don't know as all of them are in there, so don't quote me on it. I know that they've got 50 cryptos that you can look at, including Bitcoin, which is the one, of course, that I like. And did I not tell you to buy right before the election? I hope you did. Anyway, if you didn't, you know, and you do spend money on a credit card, this may be worth looking at because Gemini is going to give you effectively a kind of crypto back. So instead of cash back value, you're getting crypto back value. So you get 4% on gas, transit, ride share, 3% on dining, you get 2% on groceries and 1% on everything else. Of course, make sure you pay your credit card bill every single month. You know that's really important. But I think it's kind of neat. There's a 0% fee. You know, so many of these cards have very large fees. You don't have a fee. And guess what else? If you actually go to Gemini.com/Trish, you can get up to $200 in a Kickstart crypto bonus. So I encourage you to do that. I mean, there's some regulation around that in terms of, I think you have to spend $3,000 in the first 90 days. Go look at the fine print. Go look at this today. Gemini.com/Trish. You know we love our sponsors on this show, right? A lot more to get into here today as we consider what's going on here with one Letitia James. She is suing, as I mentioned, on behalf of illegals that may be collecting SNAP benefits because she does not want the federal government and Donald Trump Trump knowing. No, no, no. You're not allowed to know. It's all happening, of course, as she ignored those sanction concerns. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, they had sanctions against Iran, but apparently, you know, it doesn't matter to Letitia James. So Iran and China can do whatever they want. Well, apparently, illegals can collect SNAP benefits and there's no accountability. If anything, the accountability is the other way, right? Letitia is out saying, we demand that they stop asking for any kind of identification on the people that are getting the SNAP benefits. Here she is speaking on the issue. Oh, this is priceless. And the GOP is like, for goodness sakes, this woman, she cares about one group, and it's not actually the New Yorkers that she's supposed to represent. Watch.
Today, Attorney General Bonta, Attorney General Dana Nessel, and I are co-leading a coalition of our fellow Democratic attorneys general in suing this administration to protect SNAP and the sensitive personal information of all of its recipients. The federal government's demand that states turn over SNAP recipients' data is flat out illegal. In fact, our laws prohibit us from disclosing this SNAP data unless it is strictly necessary for administering the program. And in this case, it is not. This latest action from this administration is nothing more than an attempt to sow fear and to cause chaos amongst vulnerable populations. And we are suing to uphold the rule of law, to protect the sensitive personal information of everyone who receive SNAP benefits, and ensure that this administration does not use critical and necessary food assistance to target immigrant communities. I too want to thank my team.
Oh, you want to thank your team, your lovely team, right, who is ignoring all the sanction issues. Letitia James, everyone, making sure that you know she's fighting hard for everyone who may be illegally collecting SNAP benefits. I mean, I don't know how you play this. Democrats are like, why is it that no one likes us right now? Why are we in so much trouble? Why do we actually have to have Eric Swalwell doing workout videos in order to get any attention? And he's still not getting attention. Really. So why are we polling so badly? Why does no one like us? Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but like, again, your politicians aren't really standing up for the people that they're supposed to be standing up for. Letitia, great case in point. So this has become a big issue with her hometown paper. I mean, the New York Post taking straight aim at her. Tishy James wages SNAP lawfare to protect illegal immigrants. This is an editorial by the New York Post editorial board, okay? They are all over this. They don't like this. They're like, what is she doing? Trying to secure benefits for illegals at the cost of everyday New York and, frankly, taxpayers all over the country. I mean, this is a problem. I mean, they point out that SNAP fraud is somewhere around $10 billion a year and rising. Of course, it's rising under the circumstances. Thank you, Joe Biden. And Team Trump wants to crack down on this. So they're saying, hey, we want to know who's actually getting these benefits. We want a record of it. This is a lot of money to be handing out. And yet Attorney General Tish James is suing the Trump administration, suing again. Like, that's all she has time to do. She can't possibly make sure that there's no money laundering in New York between China and Iran because she's too busy suing the Trump administration. One after another. This is the 30th, okay, guys? The 30th lawsuit since he's gotten there. She's aiming for 100 this year, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so she keeps losing, not to mention. She keeps losing. So here's another one. She's wasting New York taxpayer dollars. She's leading this lawsuit. And it is to do what? It is to make sure that the Trump administration cannot get the names or information on anybody who is here illegally and collecting SNAP benefits. Because the idea is, you know, you really shouldn't be getting benefits if you're there illegally. And they're trying to cut down on the waste. And they're trying to cut down about, you know, people coming over the border illegally. They're cracking down on that. And this is their prerogative, right? Because it's the federal government. And Tishy baby, no, doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So here's the New York Post. Again, hometown paper there for Tishy, writing anyone illegally collecting SNAP is stealing. States should be lining up to help the feds. You better believe it, where appropriate. Because you don't want people illegally collecting the benefits. They need to be deporting these crooks, they write. But James, who only wants to resist and counter Trump at every turn, right? They write, eager to counter everything Trump insists the feds request for SNAP data is simply more the president's cruel and chaotic immigration agenda, and absolutely unacceptable, right? Which they say is a favorite Tishism. They write, surely the truly chaotic policy was waving in millions of unvetted migrants while springing violent criminal asylum seekers from jail. And, well, the rest is history, right? We've had quite a horrific time, especially in New York, with the violence that has come from some of these people. So, look, I would just say this. When you look at ISIS data and they show you that there are nearly 700,000 people in the country that they know have committed a crime, and there's no way to actually find them, don't you think that maybe some of those people might be actually trying to illegally collect SNAP benefits? And might it not make a little bit of sense to dot the I's and cross the T's and cross-reference things? And shouldn't that be the government's prerogative? I mean, if this is taxpayer money after all, not according to Tish. No. Because she's just going to resist. This is all she's about, as we know. Right? I won't bore you with the too male, too pale, too stale thing, but this is her the other day, clearly panicking because she realizes the walls are closing in. She's got the mortgage fraud allegations piling up. That's a biggie. And those are fresh. Like there's no, that's a fresh one. And she can say whatever she wants, but I'm sorry, she's a lawyer. She should have known better, not to mention the thing from 1989 where she's telling everyone she's somehow, on documentation, her dad's wife. I'm sorry, that's like getting into Ilhan Omar territory, right? Here she is.
And you want me to sit in my seat and stand idly by and allow this craziness to happen? You could come after me if you want, but you elected me to stand up. You elected me to use the law. You elected me to go to court. You elected me to continue to challenge this administration. You elected me to stand up for the least of God's children. You elected me to continue fighting on, and I will fight on.
Fight. Right? Gosh, she's sounding a little like that guy we had to hear from MSNBC. Do you remember him? Jonathan Capehart. Is he still at MSNBC? Fight. The Democrats are really getting desperate. Her campaign is on the ropes. You just look at the latest polls. People are not in sync with her. For goodness sake, she's not doing the job that she was sent there to do. It's more important, right, to go after Donald Trump than to do anything else because they got to fight. As Jonathan Capehart, again, you probably have no idea who he is, but I think he was an MSNBC anchor, and here he is on another network speaking about this very issue.
When you fight, you're going to piss somebody off, excuse me. And so I think, when Donald Trump won in 2016, I spent the next year talking to all sorts of people, trying to understand how did this guy win the presidency when he ran, he was opposite everything Republicans told me that they wanted in a president. And the number one through line was he fights. And what Democrats are now demanding of their leaders is that they know, I think Democratic Party faithful, they know that that their leaders are in the minority, that there's not much that they can do. But you're just going to sit there and just let this happen? We need you to stand up and fight. Give voice to the fear and the anger and the frustration that's out there in the country.
So you understand, that's exactly the kind of tonality and the tenor of the sort of vibrato, should I say, of the yelling that we heard from Letitia James. In fact, I do think one of her points was, I will fight. I was elected to fight. So she's embracing that kind of rhetoric, all while, ignoring the people that are there in the state, in the country. And this is why, when I tell you that the Democrats are struggling, and you look at the poll numbers and poor, Reverend Al Sharpton, who just can't get over these new numbers from the Wall Street Journal, trying to figure out, what's wrong. It's not because, they're not quote unquote fighting. It's actually because they're fighting, because they're just standing in the way saying everything that Donald Trump does is wrong. Even though you look at an economy that's growing right now, 3% GDP growth, not bad. I mean, hey, I'd like more, you'd like more, Trump would like more, but not bad. I mean, the internals of the economy are looking really good. Inflation seems to be coming down. So all of this is a positive sign. And yet, their numbers are in the you-know-what.
And speaking of polling, A new Wall Street Journal poll shows Democrats getting their lowest approval number among voters in 35 years, with Republicans outperforming them by nearly 20 points. How big of a red flag should this be for Democrats a year before the midterms? And what can they do to improve their perception among voters?
I'll tell you what, it's not turning to communism, right? As AOC is trying to encourage everybody to do. And if you listen to that entire soundbite, his guests were like, oh, well, we just need to embrace Mom Dammy or whatever his name is, right? Who, by the way, you look at the latest poll numbers, he's in the lead, 55%. Even if Cuomo and the New York City Mayor Eric Adams were to team up, like, he's still leading. So there's a real shot that guy wins the thing. So then you're going to have a communist running New York. I mean, it was bad enough when you had Comrade de Blasio, and then you're going to get this guy in there who clearly has his issues, and yet AOC loves him all day long, right?
I think a lot of people just need to get to know folks before they issue an endorsement, and I hope that this conversation can be constructive to bringing the party together and rallying behind our nominee.
Yeah. So they're willing to embrace socialism. They're willing to embrace communism, despite the fact that, let's face it, that's not why America is the success it is. And that's never actually where you should be going with any of your ideas. And so consequently, you're going to have real systemic problems in New York if that's, in fact, who you're going to elect. All while Letitia James is looking the other way when they've got real problems, of course, when it comes to actual money laundering that may be going on. And there's no accountability for it. Nobody seems to care, and that is just so fundamentally wrong, right? And but she has made it clear who she's preferring in all of this, shall we say? And when you're ignoring sanction violations, and you're allowing a bank to continue its operation while knowing that there's some suspicious activity, all while simultaneously saying, you know what, hey, we're going to give whatever we need to for anybody who's here illegally. We're going to allow them to secure benefits. And when the federal government doesn't want them here, we're going to double down and we're going to say we're not going to give you any information, thereby allowing the fraud to continue. How is that right, guys? How is that right? I'll tell you, it's not right. It's not right. Hey, another shout out for one of our sponsors, because, we're so proud to have them here on the show. And, health is like a very, very important thing for me. I try to drink a lot of water. I try to go for walks every day. I'm with my family, visiting family in Ireland right now, and actually there's a tremendous walk that I went on this morning. I'm going to have to send you guys some pictures. Maybe I'll put them up on YouTube in the community, and also on Instagram. But I feel like I'm so healthy over here, right? I'm walking every day, I'm drinking my water, I'm eating right. And one of the benefits of being here is that they have, some rules and regulations around their food that we could kind of use, shall we say, in the United States of America. Thanks to Kennedy, we're actually going to probably be getting some of this stuff. RFK Jr., he's obsessed with this. And, Make America Healthy Again is such a platform of his. Well, here's the good news. One of our show sponsors, Balance of Nature, has always cared about health. I mean, that's their entire platform, if you would, and they've been doing this for years. You can just go onto their website and check out all the testimonials. They've got all kinds of good stuff for you. I happen to take the fruits and veggies to make sure, I get all my vitamin count. But you know what the good news is? There's no bad stuff in it. No bad stuff at all. No fillers, no weird, not even any gluten. How do you like that? You can get 35% off with my code, Trish, Trish, and how to spell my name. 35% off. You're helping the show. You're helping yourself. 1-800-246-8751 is their number. You can call them directly. And they have all kinds of things, by the way. You don't have to get that one. I mean, I like it, but there's tons of stuff on there. 1-800-246-8751. Make sure you use code word Trish for 35% off plus free shipping and money back guarantee. Can't beat it. All right. This is one that has been bugging me like you wouldn't believe for a really long time. We have talked a lot, guys, about the Letitia James case against one Donald Trump. And we've talked about how ridiculous, it absolutely was ridiculous to think that she was going after him for a private transaction. When I say a private transaction, he borrowed money from Deutsche Bank And he borrowed it based with the collateral of Mar-a-Lago. And she's trying to say Mar-a-Lago was only worth like 18 million, whereas he had a much higher valuation. I think he would allege it's at least worth like 25 times that. Just look at what properties there in that market have sold for. So who is Letitia James to decide the value of one Mar-a-Lago? So the whole case was fundamentally flawed right from the get-go. That was really, really understood. It was the one case that really bugged me, even more than the others, because, you know, I'm a business reporter by background, and I just really thought this one was out over its skis. Well, here's the thing. Like, you know, we're still waiting. This article is from a couple of weeks ago. Trump's still waiting on ruling for 454 million, which is now over 500. Appeal sparking debate. Politics is interfering. You better believe politics is interfering, because I'll tell you, this thing should have taken 30 days, okay? 30 days to appeal this. I played for you all the sound bites. I'm going to play some of them again, because you should know that the judges, they don't agree with this. Not in any way, shape, or form. In fact, you know, poor Judith Vale, who had to argue the case for Letitia James, because at the appellate court, you actually need smarter lawyers, less political, that maybe sort of know the law. But anyway, she gets up there, and they're shooting her down before she gets 2 words out of her mouth. Take a peek.
May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated—
Ms. Vale, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners, where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence, where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses.
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved the consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Several responses.
And I want to add to his question, and little to no impact on the public marketplace.
Boom, right? Okay, boom. So that's kind of all you need to know. There's the headline right there. They don't like the case. They think it's absolutely ridiculous. But if you don't take my word for it, I mean, this one judge, Judge Friedman, who actually, by the way, is about to retire soon, and some people are speculating that there might be one other judge who kind of runs the show over there and got appointed by Kathy Hochul, and is said to be a very political animal and may actually be doing this deliberately, holding this up. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It should take 30 days, and we're looking at over 300. It really doesn't make any sense. Anyway, this one judge is like, come on, lady. Like, you don't have any other cases like this. This makes no sense, and it really speaks to an attorney general that is way out over her skis with some kind of mission creep here. I want you to see it.
You're pointing to Ernst & Young. You're pointing to First American. Ernst & Young, you're dealing with the collapse of Lehman Brothers. First American, you're dealing with an action brought against an appraiser who overvalued properties at the behest of a lender perpetrating a scheme to induce unsophisticated consumers into taking out home loans that they could not afford. It hardly seems that justifies bringing an action to protect Deutsche Bank against President Trump, which is what you have here. I mean, you've got 2 really sophisticated parties in which no one lost any money, and that was the point of my initial question. Every case that you cite involved where there was damage to consumers, damage to the marketplace. You've got a scheme to get unsophisticated consumers to take out home loans. You got a collapse of Lehman Brothers. You don't have anything like that here.
Well, first of all, Your Honor, the statute doesn't require that whatsoever for liability. And the statute is written broadly because the legislature wants the Attorney General to go in and stop fraud and illegality.
Counsel, I think you hear underneath all these questions the question of mission creep. Has 6312 morphed into something that it was not meant to do? And that's something you must address, because there has to be some limitation on what the Attorney General can do in interfering in these private transactions, as Justice Friedman said, that where people don't claim harm. So what is the limiting principle?
Like, That sounds like a group of people that really don't think Letitia James should be bringing that lawsuit, right? Am I hearing that right? I think I'm hearing that right. So what is she doing bringing that lawsuit? Well, I think we know. I mean, it was politics, politics, politics as usual. Now, apparently, the reason why it's stuck more than 300 days now in the Court of Appeals when it should have been decided and thrown out, frankly, within the first 30 days, and I've tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. Have I not, guys? I think I've been pretty generous. I'm like, maybe the justices are struggling because, he's the president and they want to make triply sure that they can throw this thing out. Maybe they want some kind of change to the rules so that a Letitia James or AG like Letitia James can't do this kind of stuff in the future. We've been grasping for answers, right? And the reality is we don't have any. We don't have any, except now maybe we do. Maybe we do. And this is concerning. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, super concerning. I'm going to get to what people are suggesting in just a second. But first, once again, Judge Friedman, who may be retiring soon, sounding really skeptical of all of this. Take a listen.
If you look at what the Deutsche Bank witnesses testified to, Haig said that the financial strength of the guarantor affects the pricing in terms of the loan, and it affects whether the private wealth management group would be allowed to do this deal at all.
Doesn't Mr. Hay
Collateral.
Doesn't Mr. Hay testify that there were 14 factors and this was the least important factor?
Well, certainly there are multiple factors that go into the risk assessment, but both for materiality and for disgorgement, the issue is not whether there's only one factor. There's often a lot of factors that are being considered. For materiality, it's whether it's important to the overall total mix of information, and this was absolutely critical to the overall mix of information, not only because they were looking specifically at what the net worth was in order to decide the terms of the loan.
Really? No, I think that actually there's a little something more going on. Because if you look back, this particular article, which was in MSNBC, right as this all happened, right, because everybody was watching it in real time, and even the headline couldn't avoid it. They said Letitia James's massive Trump civil fraud victory in question after appellate arguments. So we all saw it. And you look at those judges, and those judges clearly had absolutely no use for the case. And yet, so we're still here waiting. It should have taken 30 days, and now it's over 300. Think about that, okay? Think about that, you guys. He has been waiting. This article, which was actually written 2 weeks ago, 293 days. So now you add 14 to that, okay? We're well into territory that we should not be into. And you're talking about a lot of money in this civil fraud judgment that Letitia James decided to pile on with him, even though if you listen to those judges, they think it's all ridiculous. So in September of 2024, guess what? Everybody was like, okay, there's no way this thing is gonna last. There's just absolutely no way. And yet here we are still looking at this. Now, why would that be? Why would that be? Okay, well, the concern now, and this came out a few months ago and got lightly reported on, we reported on it here, the New York Post reported on it. There were concerns that Kathy Hochul, who's the governor of New York and was dealing with, this whole fee thing that they're charging in Midtown Manhattan, she wanted the fees and he didn't want the fees. And so there was this whole snafu over all of that. She apparently said to him, and again, this is the White House's accounting of this, and she disputes it, but she said, hey, I control the courts. And so the concern is that Kathy Hochul is effectively sitting there controlling the courts, controlling the judges, or at least controlling one woman in particular. Okay, one woman in particular, and that's the fear. So I'm going to go back to this article for a second. Which again is in the New York Post. They're writing that, and I didn't realize this, so this is important, guys. Any member of a 5-judge panel can place a hold on issuing a decision without having to provide any kind of reason. Wow. Okay, so there's one person that the New York Post is speculating about, and some people have said is very, very beholden to Kathy Hochul. And that one person would be, let me show you, she's actually running the whole shebang. She is the top justice there. Here we go. This is her friend, and this would be Diane, let me make sure I get her, Renwick. Okay, the woman on the right, or maybe it would be your left, who is seen as a likely vote to uphold the verdict. she was appointed by Kathy Hochul, and Kathy was like all proud of it because she was the first Black woman to hold that position. And so the suggestion is that this is what's holding things up, because you can have one single judge who says, I'm not going to issue a verdict. And they believe that maybe she is doing this. So White House sources claim that it is Hochul who controls the judges, which she allegedly told President Trump. And because, he was really combative with her on some of that congestion pricing stuff, and on energy issues, wind farms, et cetera, that she was threatening to hold things up, and that she could do so because, she's in tight with one of the justices that she appointed. So that is the concern at this moment. The other concern, I'll just show you here, this also in the New York Post, in the same article, George Friedman, who you may have heard, they're saying, like, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? He's actually a Democrat, and he was appointed by Pataki back in '99, and he's actually going to be leaving the bench, it's expected, this year. And so if he leaves the bench, if he's holding the majority, they're saying that perhaps she would try and wait him out, which again is just speaking to such enormous corruption. Like, it's hard to even fathom such enormous corruption. But hey, it's not like this stuff has not happened before. I think people are getting frustrated though, and realistically, like, we deserve answers. We've been waiting here for answers, and it's stuck in appeal. So this might be another one, I think, for Pam Bondi to really spend some time on and to look at, because it should not be taking this long. It just shouldn't be taking this long, and we need some accountability from these judges. I'm sorry, like 300 days. I've been generous. I've been really generous, and I'm tired with it. We deserve answers. He deserves answers. But really, for the sake of the country, and frankly, the sake of New York, the guy deserves a few answers. Another story I want to get to today, because this is just sort of amusing to me, is have you followed the American Apparel thing? Let's see what the stock price is doing right now. Let me see if I can get that up for you. American Apparel stock price, because this company, guys, has actually really seen itself take on new relevance, shall we say. I mean, new relevance in light of, they kind of were sort of seen as a nothing stock. And then what do you know, out of the blue, they hire Sweeney, American Eagle, and suddenly we're looking at a company that surged in value after the news came out on Thursday. So I'm sort of laughing because it's almost like, Sydney and American Eagle, I guess, can just sort of laugh all the way to the bank, right? All the way to the bank on this one. Shareholders are suddenly paying attention to this company that nobody paid attention to before. Nobody cared about, nobody paid attention to. It's got some challenges. I'm always very wary of meme stocks, of course, so I would caution you on that. But, you look at the stock price and what it did, say, on Thursday, and it's truly kind of amazing, just amazing. So you may know the drill by now, Sweeney. This was actually a price earlier. It's come down in today's session. This was in the pre-market, and I saw that one earlier, but I should point out it's down about 12 cents today at $11.40 a share, a loss of 1%. But, hey, it's way up from where it was before they hired her, I guess, because now it's suddenly getting some attention. I mean, she's getting a lot of attention too. You could say that this is a marketing campaign that kind of nailed it, right? Suddenly, a company that no one was talking about anymore is on the front burner, and people are talking about American Eagle. And hey, maybe somebody will go and get the jeans, but at the same time, others are freaking out. This has created a major sort of snafu, if you would, amongst the woke liberals who somehow see this as something that, I just don't. Like, what's wrong with saying somebody has good jeans? It's funny. Like, it's a play on jeans, right? She's wearing jeans. And didn't Calvin Klein and Brooke Shields do a little thing like this, like way back many years ago in the 70s? And that was actually a little racier, frankly. This one, I'm sort of surprised that this is where they're taking it. But, simultaneously, this is where they take everything, is it not? Like, this is absolutely where they take everything. In fact, Doja Cat, do you know who Doja Cat is? Doja Cat, I think she's jealous. I really think Doja Cat is like, How did this girl get to be so famous because of this? One of the things that she says in the commercial spot is that, she has good genes and they're blue jeans, and like somehow that's being interpreted as God knows what. Well, look, here's how it's being interpreted. I won't even do Doja Cat just for a moment. We have this liberal lady who's just absolutely wackadoo over the whole thing, and here's how she's taking it. So this is the interpretation out there.
Should we be surprised that a company whose name is literally American Eagle is making fascist propaganda like this? Probably not, but it's still really shocking. Like, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes. Like, that is Nazi propaganda.
Wow. Okay, and a lot of the mainstream media agrees with her. And apparently Doja Cat, I don't know if she agrees with her, but I think she is jealous. I mean, I really think she's like, wait a second, why is this woman getting all this attention? So she decides to imitate the accent, I guess, of a Southerner, or in her view, a hillbilly, because anybody who doesn't speak like her, which is not admirable, is, well, you judge. I'm curious to hear your view on this one. Doja Cat, ladies and gentlemen.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Wow. Was that necessary? Like, why does she feel like she has to get in on the action? If anything, she actually just helped Sydney Sweeney, and she helped American Eagle even more. Right? Again, they're laughing all the way to the bank because the stock is suddenly on people's radar. The company is suddenly on people's radar. And guess what? The product is suddenly on people's radar. Like, people are like, oh, maybe I'll go and get these jeans. Because, yeah, Sydney's got good genes. Here's a little snippet of it.
Composition often is determined by my genes, like hair color, personality, and even eye color. Eyes up here.
Sydney Sweeney has her genes.
It's funny, right? It's funny. And yet they don't have a sense of humor. Clearly, like the woke has just completely taken over the humor category. No wonder poor Stephen Colbert is done and over, right? How could it be humorous in light of how they've taken over the whole agenda? Apparently, this was the 2019 spot, so you can see they're like, it's a reverting to the norm, like the pendulum swings. And we get a little crazy, and then we come back to normal. And look, I'm going to say something. Like, I get it. Staying healthy is hard. Like, it's hard, and it's just not that easy for everyone. And I am sympathetic to that. I'll never forget having to lose weight after twins. But all that said, like, you should still be somewhat aspirational, should you not? In life, you want to be aspirational enough to say, okay, maybe I'm not the healthiest now, but I want to be healthy. And marketing typically is directed at people that want to be something more, right? That's kind of what it's all about. And so Sydney Sweeney has come in and wow, like she's representing something that, a lot of women would like to be. And thus it seems like we're returning to some form of normalcy on the marketing front, which means, the plus size model. And again, like there's, look, I know it's hard. Like I don't want to sound mean. I get it. But like, you're selling jeans, for goodness sakes, people. Like, you're selling stuff, okay? Like, is there a reason why there was always a hot girl in a beer commercial? I mean, up until recently, when suddenly you had the transgender in the beer commercial. And guess what? That didn't sell any beers. Ha! Surprise, surprise. It's not that hard to figure out. And credit to American Eagle for figuring it out. They nailed it. Totally nailed it. Now, on the stock, we'll see. It's entertaining to watch. I think you need to be careful with anything that's a meme stock, and I haven't looked at the internals of the company, so I wouldn't be rushing out necessarily. But, I do think it's interesting that it's doing a little bit better. By the way, speaking of stocks, have you seen 76 Research? Have you guys gone there? I think my shot's a little close today. I'm getting like up close and comfortable with the camera. How's that? You should go check it out. So 76 Research is a company I started with a very dear friend who spent decades on Wall Street running billions of dollars. And I kept saying, like, this industry is, well, a little like the news industry, okay? So, like, it's not as transparent as I'd like it to be. There's a lot of sort of back-end stuff that goes on, and, you know, people are getting paid on the back end for certain recommendations, et cetera. I mean, it happens. And so I just thought, what if we could come out with a newsletter where we're just perfectly pure and honest about what we like? We're totally, you know, no conflicts. We don't have any of those issues that you often see within the Wall Street community. And my good friend Rob, he was game for it. So we started 76 Research, and it's been just a blockbuster. You can get the 76 Research newsletter for $1 a month for the first 2 months. Then it goes to $9.95. You can cancel it anytime you want. But I really encourage you to do it, because just look at the success we've had. I mean, just enormous success. All of the things that we've been recommending to you. These are the performers in the top portfolios, actually. American Resilience, Inflation Protection, Income Builder, which is great for retirees. If you ever want to retire one day, you're going to need some of that income. So that's what these are designed for. The 76 Research newsletter that you can get with code word dollar has a diverse set of picks that we offer up. And, you know, we got a nice email from somebody the other day who was absolutely positively thrilled at our most recent one. You can get all of them, including the back inventory, if you go to 76research.com. You use code word dollar. I encourage you to do it. It's great to see so many people. We're a little bit earlier than normal here on the show, are we not? But I just want to go out to the viewers and say hi, because you guys are the reason I've been able to do this. You are the reason we are coming up on 1 million subs. 1 million subs here on the Trish Regan channel. And, you know, all I did was a couple of years ago, I think it's 2 years now, I just started coming on the show laying here live every single day. And you guys responded. And I am here because of you. And this victory, which, oh man, I'll tell you, it's gotten harder as we're coming up on 1 million. I'm like, what is the deal? You'd think that, you know, compound interest would come into effect here on YouTube, but I don't know. They're making it harder and harder and harder. So all the more reason for you guys to share, for you to tell your friends, for you to comment, for you to like. I'll ask you to like. I know Dawn tells you to like it a lot too, but it is harder. I don't know why, but I encourage you to do your part. I promise I'll continue doing my part no matter where I am in the world. This is so important to me, because we're on the front lines of history together here every day, and the only thing you're ever going to hear from Trish Regan is the truth, whether you like it or not, and no matter how much it costs her, which, I'll be honest, at various times it has. But that's okay, because I'm willing to take those risks in the name of seeing things through to what is right. And listen, Letitia James, we deserve to know what was really going on. President Obama, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Brennan, all of you, Clapper, we deserve to know what was going on. And there needs to be accountability. And so we're relentless, and we're not going to stop. Join me in this together. It is great to see all of you here. Just wonderful. So I'm seeing a lot of new names too, so that's a good sign. That's a good sign for the algorithm. Cat Crazy, thank you so much. Yeah, you're right. It's probably getting more competitive. You're right. It is getting competitive, because I think people are turning away from the mainstream media. YouTube is killing it, and I love seeing that, because you know what? We're all done with the mainstream media. They finished themselves. We won't be lied to. No more. I'll see you back here live tomorrow. A lot more content coming your way. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell.